I give the floor to the Russian Federation.
Mr. Chair, distinguished colleagues, the importance of holding the guilty to account is hard to overestimate. If it's done successfully, it can help bring about long-term stability and peace. However, at the same time, a number of very important conditions must be observed. Firstly, efforts to combat impunity must be placed within the broader context of national reconciliation and should not preempt the outcome of that. Secondly, the appropriate mechanisms for investigations and accountability must be determined by the relevant state and its people. Preoccupation with international criminal justice, particularly in its transitional and post-conflict forms, has led to a number of experiments which did not meet those important conditions and can hardly be considered successes. In many cases, these sorts of mechanisms were used as instruments for regime change. The concept note for today's event refers to the Security Council's inability to refer the situation in Syria to the ICC. Let's think about a situation or situations when that referral did take place, Libya and Darfur. And can we really say that the ICC's work in those cases was helpful? Not at all. Everything that we've seen over these decades is simply a mix of selective justice and an absolute futility of efforts. The politicized and biased approach of the ICC did not help stabilize the situation in either of these countries or regions. Libya deserves a particular comment. The case against Muammar Gaddafi was fabricated by the ICC prosecutor in a matter of days. NATO countries used it as a grounds for overthrowing the regime and for carrying out large-scale bombings that literally annihilated a once prosperous country. As time has shown, the allegedly irrefutable evidence used in the case against the Libyan leader proved to be the result of the usual doctoring, and after the scandalous publications in the press, this is now very well known. Did this make the situation for Libya any easier, a country which continues to be in ruins? Or perhaps the ICC started to investigate the cases of illegal NATO airstrikes that led to the casualties among the civilian population? Not at all. The role of the ICC in Libya is not just a story of shame. It's a crime committed that led to the downfall of a country and many years of suffering for its people. Those who allowed this, with their participation in the fabrication of false evidence, need to bear responsibility for that. Until then, any talk of the Security Council referring other situations to the ICC in future would be pure hypocrisy. Let's get back to Syria. This country is doing everything it can to put an end to violence, to combat terrorists, and to normalize the situation on the basis of political dialogue. Syria has not requested assistance from the UN to investigate crimes committed on its territory. Moreover, in Damascus, they have made it very clear that they do not need this assistance. Therefore, we would like to recall the content of Article 2, Paragraph 11 of the UN Charter. The UN does not have the right to intervene in matters which are within the domestic jurisdiction of any state. The creation of the so-called impartial and independent mechanism for the investigation of international crimes in Syria, in the absence of the consent of the Syrian Arab Republic or a resolution of the Security Council adopted under Chapter 7 of the UN Charter, was a gross violation of the principles of the sovereign equality of all members of the organization and non-interference in their internal affairs enshrined in Article 2 of the Charter. A number of member states forcing through the creation of this mechanism in the General Assembly led to a situation in which one of the primary organs of the UN exceeded its mandate, its purview, as enshrined in the Charter of the organization. Taking these factors into account, Resolution 71/248 must be considered null and void. Consequently, everything that the mechanism has done since that resolution was adopted is outside the bounds of the UN Charter and international law. Any information or evidence gathered by the mechanism cannot be used for the purposes of any national or international criminal proceedings. Distinguished colleagues, we respect the positions of delegations that sincerely want to help establish justice in Syria. We're trying to do the same thing. The Russian Federation has consistently defended the principle that resolving issues of accountability and punishment must not be done to the detriment of the political settlement. Quite the opposite. Those two processes must support one another. Russia is committed to the prompt establishment of a peaceful settlement in Syria and is making every effort to achieve that. Thank you.
Thank you.